go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome you all here to our regularly scheduled board meeting this evening. We're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and Mrs. Wise is going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Now that we are all seated and appropriately socially distant, if you would like to remove your mask, you can. We just ask that if you're coming to the microphone, put your mask on your way to the microphone. Dr. Goller, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Lauer.
Present.
Dr. Towers. Here. Ms. Scott. Here. Mrs. Wise. Present. Mr. Burks. Mr. Irwin.
Present.
Mr. Lockhart.
Hayward. Thank you, Dr. Goller. We're going to start with our reading of our vision, mission, and core values. Our vision is working together with our community. We inspire our students to discover their talents and rise to their greatest potential. Our mission is building on the strengths of our diverse community. We create an engaging, comprehensive educational environment that supports the growth of lifelong learners. Our values are: we are committed to always asking and answering what is in the best interest of each student. Leading by example, we are committed to personal accountability and work habits, honesty, and respect. We are committed to a safe, secure, and welcoming environment. We are committed to practices of inclusive excellence that value differences. We are committed to respecting the voice of all district stakeholders through collaborative engagement. And we are committed to developing students who improve the quality of life for the Wabash Valley. We now come to the time for our first call for citizen comments. And we ask that you limit those to 5 minutes. And please, since these are on agenda items only, state which agenda item you will be discussing. And we're going to invite Dr. Brucken of the Health Department to come up first.
Thank you for asking me to come tonight and for your continued collaboration with the Eagle County Health Department working through your back-to-school plans. I wanted to talk a little bit about the AB plan that's been submitted here. We have been working every single day, hand in hand with the school system, working through these different platforms. We collectively at the Health Department, myself personally, fully support the AB plan because it sticks to the core values of trying to keep kids as separate as possible and to ensure universal masking within the schools. We know by contact tracing, by watching how this virus behaves, particularly amongst young people, school-age kids, to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, we have to stay distanced, we have to stay masked, and we have to stay clean. Those are 3 very simple values to always honor. The school board, school system has put together plans that is going to enable us to return to school safely. I have made absolutely no secret to the fact I want to see kids in school. I think the benefits of kids in school far outweighs the potential detriment brought to us by COVID-19. From academics, from nutrition, supervision, structure in their lives, incredibly important. But I also want to appeal to the public as well, because at 3:15 when school is out, parents need to be parents. We have to take care of our kids to ensure that those same variables that we're controlling at schools with distancing and masking and making good decisions are practiced after school. We at the Health Department collectively fully anticipate an invasion.
Sounds like a swarm of bees is coming.
Yes. The locusts. We fully anticipate to have some positive kids in our school system. We already have positive kids and school hasn't started. We have positive staffers as well and school hasn't started. So those people that are positive have not gotten this from a school or school activity. It's from social interactions outside. It's pool parties and house parties and going to businesses and not masking and not social distancing. Household contacts, which are almost unavoidable. We have to do a great job. The school system is committed on contact tracing. We are committed from the health department to be a collaborative joint resource at all times to keep our kids and our teachers and our staffers as absolutely as safe as possible. But I do want to commend Dr. Hayworth and the entire administrative team for this plan. It's very solid.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. And again, if you would please give us time to clean the microphone stand before coming back up, we would appreciate that.
Good evening, President Irwin, Superintendent Lockhart, board members. I come to you this evening with gratitude that through great communication and commitment, the Vigo County School Corporation, in partnership with the Vigo County Teachers Association, since June 1st, when I formally became president-elect, that we were committed together in coming up with a plan for reentry into our safe schools. And at this time, I'd like to thank the Vigo County Teachers Association discussion team, who worked tirelessly without compensation for many, many hours of looking at data, researching, talking, working through issues. It seems like we would bring something to the table and then the positivity rate would change, or something would change within our school or within our community. And so we are committed to continue a partnership with the Vigo County School Corporation, the Vigo County School Board, our building level principals, in connection with our Vigo County Teachers Association. As we know, we will need to continue to monitor and work toward an even safer environment. This 2020-2021 school year is by no means going to be a normal year, but we certainly, in agreement and in partnership with faith and clarity, appreciate all of these entities coming together to make our schools safer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Their hearts are always with the kids, and so the board is glad to work with the teachers and come to a consensus of how we're going to open the schools, and there are going to be more challenges than ever faced before by any of us. So, we're ready.
Mrs. Lauer.
Hi, I'm tall. My name's Ruth Burrow. I'm a parent of 2 Vigo County school children and an attorney. Safe enough. That's what the school corporation said on its Facebook page on July 23rd about the school reentry and COVID-19 mitigation plan. How many of us would ride a roller coaster, buy a used car, or board an airplane proudly labeled safe enough? I'm encouraged to hear Dr. Brooken today say that we're committed now to an environment that's as safe as possible. But I'd like to talk about what the stakes really are. Safe enough is not safe. There is no mere change in the curriculum or attendance requirements. This is a life or death decision that you are making. Not only for thousands of children and staff members, including those who are high risk, obesity, diabetes, asthma, blood pressure, heart conditions, type A blood like me, taking certain medications, but also their families, again, many high risk. And the tens of thousands of people in the surrounding community whose lives will be imperiled when the school reopening becomes a super spreader event that overwhelms our healthcare system and results in unnecessary death and long-term health consequences for many. Although I know that we are in close contact with local health experts, these local health experts have not seen what the doctors have seen in New York, in Texas, in California. And if you're not basing your life and death decisions on the insights of nationally recognized infectious disease experts, you're not going to be safe. Now, what do these experts say? Number one, school cannot open safely if the virus is not under control in the local community. As of August 1st, the 7-day positivity rate hit 14.6%, almost triple the rate the week before. far above the below 5% rate for at least 14 days that most experts, including the head of the CDC, agree should be the minimum for opening in-person schools. New cases are increasing by the day, as much as 42 cases in one day in Vigo County. And national experts say multiply that number by 10, because the worried sick are the ones who get tests, not the asymptomatic or the mildly symptomatic. Examples of schools opening elsewhere, like in Denmark or Finland, are drawn from places where the virus was under control and they had a lot more measures in place. In the US, we have 4% of the world's population and 25% of the world's cases and deaths. The New York Times said last month that no nation has tried to send children back with the virus raging at levels like America's, and the scientific research about transmission in classrooms is limited. The World Health Organization has now concluded that the virus is airborne in crowded indoor spaces with poor ventilation, a description that fits many American schools. So we have to be thinking about that. And the comparisons to daycare centers are not on all fours either, because they have limited students to under 10 per room, had a distance of 6 feet, staggered arrival times, not hundreds passing in a hallway, not 1,000 people in a school. And we're already seeing the consequences in Indiana and elsewhere of opening schools when the positivity rate is high. And in Indianapolis, which has a lower positivity rate than we do, they are pushing off school to open in person till at least October. They are opening virtually. Why is Vigo County not doing the same? Now, many experts have cited situations that can increase the risk for COVID-19 cases, the 3 C's, closed spaces with poor ventilation, crowded places, and close contact settings, all of which describe bars, where the risk is well documented. And by the way, it also describes schools. Only instead of dozens of people for a few hours in a bar once in a while, we will have hundreds every day in close quarters every day the school is open. And just because the word school is painted above the door that our children and our staff pass through every day does not mean that this deadly disease will magically pass over that school as it did in the book of Exodus. 2, we must not rely on disinformation in making our decisions. Children are not nearly immune. Children are not virus stoppers. They're virus spreaders, as any parent or teacher knows. And it's not like getting a cold or even the sometimes deadly flu. Excuse me?
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So, and then 3, I will say that we need well-developed protocols. The fact that we could even have desks 3 feet apart and all facing one way and think that we could take off our masks shows that we don't have the necessary procedures and protocols in place. If Major League Baseball, with ample financial resources, lots of protocols, and adults could not open safely, how are we going to open the schools? We need much more attention on our protocols.
And that's time.
So thank you very much. Please consider the safety not just of the school children and our parents, but of the broader community.
Thank you.
Superintendent Hayworth, President Irwin, board members, my name is Leah Myers, and I'm talking tonight about the Reentry Plan. I want to thank the administration and the board for all the hard work that they have done over the last few weeks in trying to basically do the impossible, which is getting some kids back in school during a pandemic, something we've never experienced before. Senator Braun made a comment last week that said that Indiana needs to take risks when it comes back to sending the kids back to school. And the first thought that came through my mind, if my daughter was still a student at Vigo schools, was not with my child, not with anybody's child, not with our teachers. We have a 7-day positivity rate that is still twice as high as it was 2 weeks ago. We have teachers and children with underlying health issues. And while the AB cohort is a much better plan than what we had before, it is a logistical nightmare for parents who are working outside of the home that do not have job flexibility. My basic thoughts is that we really need to push back and do school either the day after Labor Day, e-learning until then, and then do the AB cohort and then reassess where we need to be. Because you can't teach children if they're homesick or worse yet, in a hospital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there's not a speaker's list, is there?
No, there's not. No, you have 5 minutes. Just please state your name and what agenda item you're going to be talking about.
My name's Tom Jukes. I'd just like to talk about the safety precautions that are trying to be implemented. I'm sure a lot of effort's been put on that and a lot of experts, but I'm just looking at a common sense approach, because I had to substitute in the schools for a couple of years, and all the experts saying such. I just saying on a practical basis this. When you've got 900 students in Otter Creek, whenever you walk through the aisles, you're shoulder to shoulder. Even if we go to half, it's still going to be very congested. So even the best laid plans, part of the students in, part of the students not, assuming we have excellent exemplary behavior of all the above, which at times, most of the time, is a struggle here and there for some. So I don't see how that's going to get implemented. Even the best laid plan, I don't see how it's going to get implemented. And one of the consequences of the students that don't mask or do whatever, and how they're going to implement that large portion of students that, you know, quite honestly, a lot of junior high students and all maybe don't do hygiene as good as they should. You know, and we're going to go to a higher level for hand washing, cleansing, mask, distance, and I just don't think it's going to be implemented. It's going to be able to be implemented in with that many students in an area under the best of circumstances. So please give that some consideration.
Thank you. Seeing no others, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I move to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Lauer made the motion to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Wise seconded that. Dr. Goller, can I get a roll call on the consent agenda, please?
Ms. Lauer,
Aye.
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Goller. Next, we're going to move on to the accounts payable docket. The Finance Committee met on Friday, is that correct? I was there, it just feels like a long time ago by now. We had some questions, and they were answered by Mrs. Wilson. So I would entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable docket.
So moved. Second.
Motion to approve was made by Mrs. Wise, and it was seconded by Ms. Scott. Any of the Finance Committee members who are present have any comment about the Finance accounts payable docket before we vote? I think all our questions were sufficiently answered in the email. So with that, can I get a roll call, please, Dr. Willer?
Mrs. Lauer,
Aye.
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Goller. I'll invite Mr. Cox forward with the personnel report.
President Irwin, Superintendent Hayward, administration seeks approval for the personnel report as presented.
I'll second.
Mr. Lockhart made the motion to approve. Mrs. Lauer seconded that. Can I get a roll call, please, Dr. Goller?
Mrs. Lauer,
Aye.
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
Aye. Thank you. Now we will welcome Mr. Tom Lintus forward with the bid for cafeteria supplies and food.
President Hayward, or President Irwin, Dr. Hayward, members of the board, the Food Service Department is asking your approval for our 2020-2021 bid for this school year. We open in bids on the 8th of July, and you have the compiled winning bids in front of you, and I'll entertain any questions if needed.
Now, did that compare to cost
We are up somewhat. We really looked at our menu and tried to downsize it so we could make it manageable for our adjusted serving this year. So hopefully our costs will be within the 3 or 4%, which is what we're going to get reimbursed this year from the state.
And some of that was, as you said, due to, more prepackaged goods, things like that.
Correct. Even the
for our breakfast
yeah,
sandwich.
our packaging and some of those items are going to be significantly more than we've had in the past. So
We appreciate the adjustments that you and your team
good staff.
Did you have to change any of the providers because of the packaging we're requiring?
We did have Acorn Company, which is a manufacturer that we've been using for paper goods for the custodial areas, was invited to bid this year, and they won a number of those items. So I think that's going to help us out.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second?
Dr. Powers made the motion to approve. Mrs. Wise seconded that. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Lauer?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Irwin?
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. We're going to move on to grants. And who is first on grants? Looks like Dr. Bowler's getting up.
Good evening, President Irwin, Superintendent Hayworth, members of the board. Tonight we bring you 3 grants. The first one is McKinney-Vento grant. It's a $50,000 grant. It's one that we have worked with over the years with Rives Youth Center at Etling Hall. The grant primarily focuses on programming, looking at ways that they can help serve homeless students and their families with a backpack program, as well as helping them improve their education. They have a very nice reading program that they use to service the children. Also, they have social services and help with family engagement. So basically, it's a $50,000 pass-through grant that we work with Rives Hall. Would you like me to do them together or separate? Do them together. Okay, the second grant that we have tonight is a professional development grant. Because of our purchase of Chromebooks, and really appreciate the help of Mrs. Wilson here tonight and Mr. Miller, we're eligible for $30,000 in professional development services from Google for Education. After the last workshop that we had on Canvas, we surveyed teachers as to their interest in future services. We have a list from teachers as to what they would like professional development services to be. So we would like to use that $30,000 to help provide more services in those areas. And then the last grant we have is Project Aware. It's a grant that the school corporation was allowed to apply for. Dr. Kirk and Dr. Valatevich assisted with this grant. It's an additional $59,000, $120 for us to attack some COVID issues that would really be helpful for our students. The first one focuses on gathering more data, academic, behavioral, and attendance data, and tracking that with a student services program. And then the second area we'd like to focus on is allowing our school counselors to continue working with at-risk students at the end of the summer as well as into the fall, and helping them track family contacts and how we're improving students' mental health as they go through COVID. So that's a $59,000 grant that we're very fortunate to be eligible for through the Department of Ed.
Thank you, Dr. Bowler. I entertain a motion to approve the grants.
I move approval.
Second.
Dr. Powers made the motion to approve. Mr. Lockhart seconded that. Dr. Bowler has been seated, so I will now ask her for the roll call. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Lauer?
I've got a question before I say aye.
Sure.
The McKinney and the professional development grant, are they, I know the McKinney is a pass-through, but is that yearly? Is that going to,
It is a yearly grant.
okay, both of those. And is the project aware that COVID-19?
Well, no, the Google for Education, I'm sorry, is not a yearly grant. It's a one-time because of the purchase of the Chromebooks this year.
Okay, thank you. And is the COVID-19 grant for the year?
It's a $59,000 to the project or where grant we already have.
Right.
And it services us, I believe, through September 30th. I can check the deadline on that, but basically it's a limited time
Okay.
to serve.
Yeah, I thought it was, but I wasn't sure that.
Addition tied to the fiscal year.
So. Aye.
Any other questions from the board members?
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
Aye. And now it looks like, Ms. Wilson, you have a couple different things you're going to talk to us about.
President Irwin, Superintendent Hayworth, and members of the Board of Trustees. Tonight, we will move through the final steps and issuance of the 2020 general obligation bonds. With that said, please consider the public hearing on the additional appropriation now open. Notice of this meeting was published in the newspaper on July 22nd, 2020. As you know, proceeds from a bond issue must be appropriated prior to being spent on planned projects. As stated at previous meetings, we plan to spend the proposed bond proceeds of $5.35 million on various renovations and improvements to school facilities and the purchase of equipment and technology. Incidental expenses incurred in connection with the issuance of these bonds will also be paid from the bond proceeds. With that said, it would now be appropriate to allow public comment on this additional appropriation request.
Same rules apply, 5 minutes. Anybody would like to make a comment over the bond?
Just in a few phrases, what, I mean, I know there's a lot of things that need to be done, but is there some specifics for $5 million that we're using the money for?
I can speak to that. Due to tax cap loss over the last 10 years, our capital projects fund has lost probably $60 million. So what we use the general obligation bonds for, as debt rolls off, we try to replace that. So in this case, technology will be a focus for this general obligation bond. Roofing projects will be a focus for this general obligation bond. Chiller, HVAC components would be a major component of this general obligation bond.
Probably maintenance somewhat, so to speak.
I don't know what there would be in there, Donna, for maintenance.
We're trying
specifically.
to just allocate large projects, so the other thing would be paving or roofing. Get both of those.
And so by using the general obligation bond, it does allow your capital projects fund to do more of your day-to-day maintenance types of items that need to be worked on and improved.
I would also argue that roofing and HVAC work would be maintenance as well.
Yep.
Seeing no others, Ms. Wilson, you may continue.
We would respectfully request that the additional appropriation resolution contained in your packet this evening be put forth for approval.
I now entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. So moved. I'll second.
Mrs. Wise made the motion for approval. Mrs. Lauer seconded that. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Lauer,
Aye.
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
The final bond resolution establishes the amount to be borrowed, the maximum term of repayment, and the maximum interest rate, and contains the legal description of the bonds. The resolution also approves the form of the fourth supplement to the master continuing disclosure undertaking and the registrar and paying agent agreement. The Securities and Exchange Commission requires that a school corporation enter into a master continuing disclosure undertaking before it issues bonds. It basically requires that we agree to annually provide certain types of financial information to the SEC's Electronic Municipal Market Access Database, referred to as EMMA. and provide notice of certain material events on a timely basis. Finally, the resolution appoints Cindy Dehart, Deputy Treasurer, and myself to the Bond Bid Award Committee, along with representatives from Baker Tilly Financial Advisors. We will work with them to ensure that the bonds are sold pursuant to the specifications in this final bond resolution. We ask for your approval of this resolution this evening.
Any questions for Ms. Wilson before we do the motion? I now entertain a motion.
I so move approval.
Second.
Mr. Lockhart made the motion to approve. Dr. Powers seconded that motion. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Lauer,
Aye.
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Hayworth, looks like you have the update for us tonight.
Yes, before I bring my recommendation, I would like to thank the collaborative efforts of the Health Department, and also mentioned here the collaborative effort with the Teachers Association and our Administrators Association. These amendments have been in discussion, this plan has been in discussion for multiple months, and we would not be here without, again, the help of the Health Department, the Teachers Association, and the Administrators Association. So, Board, I would ask that the plan drafted on 7/13/2020 be amended as presented to include the AB split.
I'd entertain a motion in a second, and we can have questions and discussions with Dr. Hayworth.
Also move.
And I'll second.
Dr. Powers made the motion to approve. Mrs. Lauer seconded that. If there's any questions for Dr. Hayworth for discussion.
I appreciate the AB option, given the large population we have that are more vulnerable students for whom e-learning is not an option because of lack of access, lack of internet, all those continued struggles we will have even when we have the laptops, the Chromebooks available for students, the access still. So I think it helps us get eyes and ears on and those students so we can stop the digital divide, which is now becoming a learning divide between those that have and have not in terms of their resources available to them at home.
And just for clarification, at any one time during this period that we're in the AB split, and I realize that may continue or may be revised by Labor Day, but that would bring us down to no more than probably about 40% of the students in the class, certainly not 150, but with those on virtual and hybrid, it brings it down even lower than that. Is that correct?
Yes, when we, Tom, I'll look at you for a little help here. When you remove hybrid students and virtual students, it will be, sorry, I wasn't speaking into my mic. When you remove the virtual students and the hybrid students and then move into the AB split, it will remove more than 50%. In fact, we believe within the high schools themselves, they will be in the 40% range.
Yeah, that's correct. We'll be looking at the 40% range from calculations we're making today.
And that's if every student is in attendance and you have 100% expected attendance, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Irwin.
Which is kind of a high in the sky dream in some days.
Thank you. I'd also just like to comment that one thing that gives me great confidence in the plan is the people who have contributed to the formation of the plan. With the administrative team, the VCTA team, the health department, and I know that you've looked at a lot of the data that come to you in other means, including letters and so forth from concerned individuals. So when you bring all that together, and when those at the table feels that this is a workable plan and a reliable plan, and one that can be safe for our students and our staff
social hours, and that has seemed to be, the problem in a lot of ways. And so I just, we have a small group here tonight, and I hope people listening or watching will just take to heart how important, how imperative it is that people mask and be socially distant as much as possible.
Dr. Hayworth, you've told us this over and over, that you're in constant contact with the health department, and I trust that if the health department ever says it's unsafe, you will notify us immediately and we will take appropriate action.
That is correct.
Just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
I'd like to say, I don't have any faith in the community to follow all of the rules. We've all talked about being out at the grocery stores since March. People do not follow the rules. I wish they did. It would be a lot easier, and we probably would have knocked this virus down. But for the record, I continue to be against face-to-face opening.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Dr. Hayworth, I have one clarification before we vote. I fully support this plan, but I just want this out there. This is an amendment to the original plan, so if for some reason this did not pass, we would go back to the original plan, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Dr. Muller, I believe we're ready for a roll call.
Yes. Ms. Lauer,
Aye.
Dr. Powers,
Aye.
Ms. Scott,
No.
Ms. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Irwin,
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Roller. Thank you, board members. Thank you to the administrative team, the health department, and everybody who's put in countless hours on that plan. We've now moved on towards the end of our meeting. We now have the second call for citizen comments. This can be on anything school-related except for personnel. We ask that you would state your name and keep your comments to 5 minutes, please. We have somebody that stepped up, and you may go next, sir.
Good evening. Tonight, I just want to express my appreciation for all the time, the effort, and concern you've put into each decision about the upcoming school year. As I look at how school is being handled in other communities, I see that Vigo County has presented more options than many others. This is because of you. This is because you listen well and you consider everyone, parents, teachers, staff, and students. Right now, it's easy for the rest of us, for parents and community members, to sit back and judge or critique what you're doing. This isn't how I would do it. Some might say, my family needs something different. Or why can't we? It seems like everyone has an opinion, but these decisions are not sitting on our shoulders, and we're grateful for that. These are sitting on your shoulders. And those who complain often seem to have the loudest voices. But tonight I want you to know that there are many, many parents in our community who value you. We may not post our opinions on Facebook or tweet about VCSC, but we're here, we're praying for you, and we're trusting you to look after the entire corporation. While we understand you can't predict the future, no one can, and it's very uncertain right now, we're confident that you're weighing all the variables, not just the ones that relate to us personally. We support you, and will continue to do so, even if your decisions don't meet our desires or preferences. We know you're doing the best that you can, and we appreciate each of you very much. Thank you.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Melinda Bonnet.
Thank you very much.
My name is Dominic Decosta. I've been a resident here in Vigo County for more years than I'd like to count, but it's way past 26 now. My children have graduated from Vigo County schools. My grandchildren have attended Vigo County schools, and I have very close friends, like family, that are in attendance at Vigo County schools. One of the things By the way, I'm an engineer and I'm retired. Mr. Irwin's going to enjoy this because he's a mathematician, and we engineers and mathematicians are insane. One of the things that I'd like to bring to your attention, if you visit the Indiana Novel Corvus site, it has wonderful data that will help you take a look into what's going on in the state relative to Vigo, to the other counties, the other districts in the state. But also it points out some of the things that I think are ambiguous when you say, oh, geez, we went up 11.6% or 7%. It's not relative because it's a moving average that they happen to be using. If you go to the site, you'll find out the following. And I kind of pose this as a question. How many 80-plus-year-old teachers do we have? I hope it's 0, right? Not retired, I'm talking about active. How many over 73? Now, the reason I point those two out, because those are the two highest deaths that occur in the state of Indiana, and virtually in every other state. That represents over 75% of those that are dead from the COVID virus. Okay? So you have to come back, and I'll give you the statistics from the state. 0 from 0 to 5 years old. 5 years old to 19 years old, 0.1%, and they all had underlines. 19-year-olds to 5-year-olds is about what the school corporation and teachers are going to be interested in. I would visit that site so you can see what the impact is, especially in Vigo County. By the way, we have 668 positives COVID out of 11,000 tested. Hate to tell you, that's a real good ratio. From that, we haven't moved since March in the death toll. We are still at 10. So what I'm trying to point out is don't let the scare tactics that are going on push you into a decision that's really not real, okay? Positive indicators doesn't mean death. Don't associate somebody reading positive as they die, because if that's the case, we have 5 million people in the United States that have come up positive, and so if they all die, we'd be pretty bad. The other thing I'll say in the ending is I can remember how many flus we've gone through previously, and I don't remember them closing schools, jobs, factories, blocking people from walking around without one of those. And there's a higher toll of death that you don't even notice. Nobody mentions it anymore about the other death tolls from the other diseases that are passed through airborne contact. Why? I think there's a purpose. But in ending, what I'd like to say is visit the site, look at the other counties around us, and you'll notice that their percentages seem to be lower even though they have higher positive rates. Why? Again, it's because they're counting a moving average instead of looking at really what is being put into the hospital, how many are going to the funeral parlor, and what are the causes. Thank you.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Hayworth. I'm Rebecca Losi. You know me as the CPR and EBT coordinator for the CPC. Don't worry, this is not a sex education debate. I'm not here to talk about that at all, because I know that right now the board needs to focus on the most pressing issue, which means to be how to keep our kids safe. And I just wanted to take my time this evening to come and thank the school board and Dr. Hayworth for your diligent work on the various school reentry options. We at the CPC appreciate all of your efforts to protect the students and staff, because above any particular program, we care about the students and we care about the well-being of the teachers, and we want all of them to be safe. And we understand that the measures you're taking in regards to guest speakers are in the interest of safety for everyone. And we know that you have given options.
Any others this evening? none, we'll move on to committee reports and information from board members. Do you have anything?
We haven't gone anyplace.
We had the finance committee meeting, we already discussed that. Dr. Hayward?
Well, I hope to soon bring a committee meeting for us, the policy committee.
Thank you.
We have been setting on some policies, and as we get the school year started, we would love for our Neola policy group to begin meeting again. We've had some time to go through some policies, though, during this time, so we're ready for you. We'll just need to find a time for us to be able to get together.
Our next business meeting will be August 24th, right back here in